I'm going to show you a simple step-by-step way to manage pepper spray eye injuries because you might be the first clinician to see the patient before ophthalmology. And what you do first can make a big difference. But do I rinse the eyes with milk? Wait, do I get that from the cafeteria? I don't think teach me this in med school. We'll definitely get into that, but in treating these type of eye injuries, it's important to know that pepper spray contains oleoresin capsicum. Say that 3 times fast. All right, I'll leave. An inflammatory oil that comes from peppers like cayenne and chili peppers. It has capsaicin, the same compound that makes peppers hot and spicy. Capsaicin activates pain and inflammatory receptors found in peripheral sensory nerves like the skin, respiratory tract, conjunctiva, and the cornea. And the cornea is the most densely innervated tissue in the body. So when pepper spray hits the ocular surface, the pain can be immediate and intense. Vision may be affected by the irritant itself or from the patient reflexively closing their eyes, and it can be really difficult to try to open the eyes when they feel like they're on fire. So just take a shower. There's actually a really important nuance about showering that I'll get into in a little bit, but a couple key concepts important to remember. Pepper spray is a chemical irritant to the eye. As long as it's on the ocular surface and surrounding skin, it's gonna keep causing pain. It's oil-based, which makes it sticky and easier to spread. So it's important to tell patients not to rub their eyes because that could actually spread the pepper spray or even reintroduce it. I like to keep things simple, and rather than thinking that this is yet another protocol that you have to try to keep track of, take a step back. The way that you manage a pepper spray eye injury is just like managing other chemical eye injuries, with a few nuances that we'll get into in just a little bit. So let's go through a simple step-by-step approach that you can use in the clinic or the ED. Step 1, rule out an open globe. Chemical eye injuries need immediate irrigation, except if there's an open globe, where irrigation could worsen the injury. So first, rule out an open globe as quickly and safely as possible so you can jumpstart irrigation as soon as possible. Some clues of a possible open globe injury. Ask about the mechanism of trauma. The risk increases with a penetrating or sharp trauma. So if someone says something hit the eye, I think it was sharp, or they able to tell you what the object was, or you literally see that something is penetrating the eye, that's an open globe until proven otherwise. The risk also increases with a high velocity trauma. The eye can only withstand so much pressure before it gives way. So if there was a lot of force that hit the eye, that may lead to a full thickness corneal or scleral laceration. And an open globe is an ophthalmology emergency. So the history can be helpful, but sometimes you don't know what hit the eye, or maybe the patient is intubated. So on exam, look for red flags. Some examples include an obvious globe deformity or prolapsed tissue coming out of the eye like the iris, a positive Seidel test using the orange sodium fluorescein temporary eye stain, and a cobalt blue light from the slit lamp, direct ophthalmoscope, or even from a Woods lamp. And what you're looking for is a leakage of fluid that can look like a waterfall. So this helps to identify a full thickness corneal or scleral laceration. Also look for an abnormal or tear-shaped pupil, 360 or near 360 bolus subconjunctival hemorrhage, and severe vision loss, especially NLP or no light perception. Now, if a patient says they can't see anything, it may be because they're having difficulty keeping their eyes open or even opening their eyes because of the significant pain. Place a numbing drop on the eye, and if it leads to significant pain relief, that's a good clue that the irritation is coming from the front part of the eye, particularly the cornea, rather than an extraocular muscle or the optic nerve like an optic neuritis. Just remember to tell the patient ahead of time that the numbing drop will sting for seconds and then it numbs. It's kind of like life. If an open globe is suspected, do not irrigate. Put a protective shield over the eye, NPO, and call ophthalmology immediately. Moving on to step number 2, immediate and copious irrigation. Place a numbing eye drop on the eye, prepare cane or tetracaine, and ask the patient if they wear contact lenses. You're going to want to remove that before irrigating and make sure to throw it out. And then irrigate like crazy. And you don't need to wait for the perfect setup. An assistant can start irrigating with the sterile 10cc syringes if those are readily available, while somebody else gathers towels and IV bags. As far as the type of fluid to use, ideally a sterile isotonic fluid like balanced salt solution or BSS, which is often used in eye surgeries, or normal saline or lactated concentrated Ringer's IV solution. Try to avoid tap water unless it is your only option. Tap water is not sterile and it's also hypotonic, so it can lead to corneal edema. You can use a Morgan lens, which can help to disperse the irrigation, but if you're not comfortable using it, or maybe it's uncomfortable for the patient and they're not tolerating it well, you don't have to use a Morgan lens to irrigate an eye. The key is get the job done. Irrigate the eye one way or another, safely, of course. How long should you irrigate for? In general, in chemical eye injuries, irrigate until the ocular pH is normalized to 7, which actually brings us to step number 3. Check the ocular pH of both eyes. Even if you were told the pepper spray only hit one eye or they're only symptomatic in one eye, always check both eyes, you never know. It can take multiple liters to normalize the ocular. It can often take multiple liters to normalize the ocular pH, 3, 5, 10, or more. But pepper spray may not alter the pH. So in this case, irrigation is more symptom driven. But it's still important to check the pH because something else may have come in contact with the eye. One thing I found in taking ED call is that the irrigation process can take a while. So here's a tip. To be efficient, I generally recommend irrigating with multiple liters back to back. For example, irrigating with 2 to 3 IV bags literally back to back, and then checking the ocular pH and asking how the patient is doing, how are the symptoms, are things improving. If the patient is still symptomatic, then do another 2 to 3 liters back to back. That's more efficient than irrigating with one IV bag, stopping, removing the Morgan lens if you're using it, checking the ocular pH, where did the strips go, asking the patient, how are you doing? And let's say the pH is abnormal, or even the patient is still symptomatic. Okay, well, now we got to go get the other IV bag. Let's go ahead and set it up. And then you do that irrigate. You get my point. And this is a key takeaway. It's better to over-irrigate than under-irrigate. If both eyes are affected, irrigate both eyes at the same time. So definitely get a whole lot of towels. With irrigating, the goal is to dilute and flush out the irritant as quickly as possible. Now, what about rinsing the eye with milk? It's actually not recommended because milk is not sterile. All right, so you've ruled out an open globe, you've irrigated like crazy, the ocular pH of both eyes is 7, the patient's starting to feel a lot better. They can even open their eyes. Let's move on to step number 4, the eye exam. Check the 5 eye vital signs, visual acuity, pupils, intraocular pressure or IOP, motility, and confrontation visual fields. Assess the anterior segment of the eye or the front part of the eye. Pepper spray eye injuries can lead to periorbital edema and erythema, blepharospasm, tearing, chemical conjunctivitis, corneal findings like an abrasion or punctate epithelial erosions, dry spots that are like tiny corneal abrasions, or even a corneal ulcer. So it's important to do a sodium fluorescein stain. A slit lamp is ideal, but it's not required. You can still get a pretty good exam with a pen light and using the cobalt blue light from a direct ophthalmoscope, Woods lamp, or even an app. After examining the front part of the eye, do a fundoscopic exam as best as possible. And what you're looking for is, do you have a clear view to the back part of the eye? Can you see the optic nerve, or is there something obstructing it like a sea of red that could be concerning for a vitreous hemorrhage? Does the optic nerve look normal, or does it look edematous, or is there hemorrhage? Red flags include significant visual acuity decline even after numbing eye drops and copious irrigation, and the vision does not improve with the patient's glasses or with pinhole. Elevated intraocular pressure, especially greater than 30, a dim red reflex, concern for an open globe, corneal edema, hyphema or blood in the anterior chamber, a foreign body in the cornea, anterior chamber, or penetrating the eye, a dislocated lens, which may be hard to see on exam but can be picked up on imaging, or a retinal detachment. After the exam, determine the urgency of ophthalmology referral, which is step number 5. So you're basically deciding, is a same-day referral needed, or can this be an outpatient follow-up within 24 to 48 hours? So this is going to be depending on the exam, how the patient is doing. Are there any urgent exam findings that you're seeing? Now list some examples on the screen. All right, let's move on to the final step, treatment and patient counseling. First, treatment. It's going to be dependent on the exam, like whether they have a corneal abrasion or if they primarily have conjunctival injection, but there's no corneal findings. So it depends on the exam as well as any residual symptoms. But at the bare minimum, lubrication, lubrication, lubrication with over-the-counter, preservative-free artificial tear eye drops. So an example is 6 to 8 times a day until the patient sees an eye doctor. Can also add over-the-counter artificial tear ointment that provides even more lubrication. So that can be really soothing, especially if the eye is still a bit irritated. The downside is it's going to blur the vision like crazy. So give the patient a heads up. It's going to blur the vision for hours. Do not use an eye ointment before driving or operating machinery. So an example regimen is having the patient use very frequent preservative-free artificial tear eye drops during the day and then using the ointment at bedtime. But they can increase the use of either throughout the day. As long as the eye drops are preservative-free, there's no limit. They can use them 30 times if they want. Now, if the patient is still having significant pain after irrigation, let's say they've received 5 or 10 liters and they're still having significant pain, resume irrigation. Refer the patient to ophthalmology as soon as possible. But I really can't emphasize enough, irrigate, 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 because that may be the answer. Now, if you're having questions or concerns, then consult ophthalmology as soon as possible. In addition to frequent lubrication, a topical antibiotic like an eye drop or ointment may be indicated depending on the exam. So an example would be a corneal abrasion, especially if the patient wears contact lenses, because contact lenses can increase the risk of an infection. For pain, in addition to the frequent lubrication, over-the-counter Tylenol or ibuprofen as needed. Now, if the eyelid skin is still burning after irrigation, there may be residual oil from the pepper spray. Using dilute baby shampoo can help to break down the oil. So here's how to use it. Place 1 to 2 drops of baby shampoo into a cup of cool or room temperature water. Avoid hot water. Dip a clean cotton round or towel into the water and gently rub the eyelid skin with the eyes closed. Don't scrub, you don't want to be rough on the eyelid skin. And then rinse the eyelids with cool, sterile saline or water with the eyes closed. And then gently pat dry. So that was treatment, really going to be dependent on the exam, but at the bare minimum, lubrication, lubrication, lubrication. Moving on to patient counseling. Pepper spray exposure can be very distressing and even traumatic for the patient. Taking a moment to reassure them can really go a long way. Most symptoms improve within a few hours, especially after copious irrigation. But it's helpful to let the patient know that irritation may linger into the next day. And if the symptoms are not improving by 24 hours, or if they're worsening at any point, an urgent ophthalmology referral is recommended. Other important things to relay to patients: avoid redness reliever eye drops, avoid taking a hot shower or bath immediately after exposure since heat can reactivate symptoms. And for contact lens wearers, discard the lenses worn during exposure, replace the contact lens case if needed, and do not resume contact lens wear until they're cleared by an eye doctor. Advise patients to avoid rubbing the eyes and to wash any contaminated clothes separately to avoid re-exposure. And finally, provide clear return precautions. So let's go ahead and recap this. Step 1, rule out an open globe. Step 2, immediate and copious irrigation. Step 3, check the ocular pH of both eyes. Step 4, the eye exam. Step 5, determine the urgency of ophthalmology referral, same day or within 24 to 48 hours. And step 6, treatment and patient counseling. And now you know how to manage a pepper spray eye injury and really chemical eye injuries. You got a 2-for-1. So go ahead and click like, subscribe, and I'll see you in this video.